All right, we're back. What is going on today? Oh no. There we go. Good. Oh, did we get it working? Of course, the one day you want an easy run at it, not going to happen, is it? But that's okay. That's all right. We're chill. We got it. Cool. All right. Finally, all right. Got cams working there. Got cams working there. We've got microphones working. Everything's working. Good. Finally. That only took like 20 minutes, didn't it? All right. Welcome back. Oh, that was stressful. My goodness. But I suppose if you're going to have any disasters, it's going to be today, isn't it? Just loves to sneak them up on you like that. All right. So for tuning in and listening to me ramble for a minute, you could stand a chance at winning something, but I won't make you sit through the entire science stuff to find that out. I know you've got busy stuff to do, like, passing out in a banana chair somewhere or something like that. But if you want to pass out in the banana chair and listen to what we're talking about too, you're welcome to do that as well. Alrighty. Since it's that day, by the way, I do have a legal prescription, so you can't be like, oh, not allowed, mate. Got a few people on the Instagram today. What do we got? One person over there on YouTube. Yes, we are back. Slight technical difficulties, but perseverance and all that sort of rubbish, right? Plus, I'm wearing these red sunglasses today, and to be honest with you, they tint everything in the most gorgeous of ways. Very nice. Hey, we've got someone on Twitch now. Welcome. $4.20 here down under, but that's just like, another reason. Some people are stuck mowing their lawns, shall we say. This $4.20, cutting some rather interesting grass. Okay. Some people are going to be falling face first into some jazz cabbage. Now, the trick with getting a good dupe skin, I reckon, is tension. You got to use, like, the sides of your thumbs, not just the ends of your thumbs. And you work it back a little bit, but you don't twist it too tight. That's why you should dry your stuff to like 55% too, I reckon. It's not as squishy when you're trying to roll it. And you got to like shape it into the shape you want it, Can't be having like some banana looking thing. Make sure it's nice and straight like an arrow. Like, got that cool conical Bob Marley flair to it. Yeah. quality papers help too. Everyone's got their own sort of opinion on what makes a quality paper. Twist it. Don't go too crazy with spitting all over the goddamn thing. Pre-rolls are good, but I do enjoy messing about with it. Now, if I was truly prepared, I would have brought something to stoke the end of this in. But we do not have that. And so we shall just twist the end of it and push it down a little bit with our thumb. So the end isn't all loose. You lose that sort of first bit of it. Hey, welcome back, Umbra. Thanks for your help with the tech difficulties, my dude. My wingman. All right. So I hope everyone had a tremendous bicycle day yesterday. If you don't know what that is, Google it, because you should. Good as 420 is. It's a an even arguably cooler and older tradition / holiday if you celebrate it. Fun times. Fun times. All right. World's biggest rolling tray. You can go like over there. Okay, so we have, looks like a fairly good amount of people there on the Instagram now. We might look at drawing this thing. And yes, a few people in the Instagram comments saying it's a bit of a dark art or an art form, getting a decent roll. It is. That's why you got to practice it a lot. You got to get your reps in. These low rep rolling training protocols. What is this ridiculousness? Oh yeah, that's right too. And we're talking pumping ions today as well. Pumping ions. Get out of here. Get to the chopper. All right. All right, let's draw this thing. Hey, a few comments over there for bicycle day. Hell yeah. All right. What do? I go share screen. And then I go that one, do I? Like that. Hey, now we're sharing that. Oh, if I go like that. I'm stuck down there. Cool. Cool. Some people over on Instagram, like, you know, giving Tally Ho Papers a shout out, and like they should, because, you know, they were there through thick and thin. Remember Tally Ho's? But yeah, I mean, 3 papers, maybe not. 2 papers, yeah, that's like pretty much standard. 2 papers is standard. All right. Well, let's click it to spin it and see who got some free stuff. Click to spin. Now, you got to be in here to claim it, or somebody else will win it. We'll give you a few minutes, but the winner will be on the screen momentarily. That's actually, well, I've got zigzags today. That's like classic as. Mad shout outs in all the old dub albums. So Pugsley Adams, are you in the chat? As I say, we'll give you a few minutes. I've still got this number to work through. And yes, it is for a full spec plant pack. So you get some of all of our stuff and some soil as well. So you can grow some plants on us. So what do we got? All right, we'll give it another couple of minutes and then we'll have another spin because you got to be in here to win it. You got to be in it to win it. As I think it was Mike Whitney. Was it Mike Whitney used to say that? And I used to say, you never know if you never go. That was Mike Whitney on Getaway. Bad dog. He was always doing some sort of fun stuff. God damn, this microphone stand needs some Cialis or something. Well, I do believe we might have to give it a respin. I do believe. But that's okay, you know. It's a long year. There'll be like plenty of other chances to win other stuff. I need that countdown music. Dun 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 do 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 do. All right, we'll give it another spin. The little Spanish flea would also be appropriate. All right, go again. Another spin. Blueberry is arguably the greatest of all the line, the cannabis lines. Fight me, bro. All right, we've got Cole Lee. Cole Lee, we got you in the chats, in the live chats. Oh, don't you worry. We're still working the live mechanics out too. Every time I come in here, it's different. Every time I mess with it, it does something else. All right. I suppose I'll start getting ready to focus on this other thing. All right, y'all. We'll still give it another few minutes, you know. It's all for fun. Don't get too bent out of shape. You know, what's probably happened is people liked the post and then ate a bunch of edibles and passed out in the banana lounge. The goddamn banana lounge. It's so tempting. That and the hammock are like two of mankind's greatest inventions. This microphone stand is one of its worst. It was like they decided to try and make a microphone stand and went, let's make one that doesn't work. And they succeeded with the utmost of purpose. All right, we'll spin the wheel. Spin the goddamn wheel. Oh, Nugget scored it. You got to be in there. You normally are. Today's your day. Don't tell me you're in the banana lounge too. Oh, hang on. You know what always happens. Hey, I didn't miss one for a change. Heaps good. That's great because I always forget about the chats on Restream, and then I'm focusing over here, and someone's like, "Oi, you suck. Say hi." What's up, everybody joining? I'd apologize for the chaos, but I mean, what else do you expect on a day like today? It is what it is. If you've got other places to be, then just go be there because this is what we're doing here. Yeah, Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law is infallible. All right. Man, Nuggets is going to be bummed out. He's normally always in there. What's up, everybody joining? Super appreciate you doing that. It's one of those days. Attention's being pulled every which way. God damn, I'm going to give Nuggets like another minute or so because like old mate's a champ. I think it's not fair, but you know. All right. Okay. I can't play favorites. Sorry, bro. Oh, we got Pete's Adventure. You in there. Oh, the start time over there is definitely not anything that's rigid. I was late as. I tried to get the cameras working and they wouldn't work. They wouldn't sync up with the laptop. Nick, you haven't missed much at all. We're just spinning the wheels, seeing who's winning this prize pack before we talk other stuff. Just hanging out. Come on, Pete's Adventure. What's the time? Let's say. Bam, bam. The tension getting to some people. All right, we're spinning it again. I feel like a game show host. This is fun. All right. Secretly groaning. You in there? Someone's got to get it. It's true. They do. I mean, at a certain point, we'll just spin the whole way around. People hiding out listening. If you're there, holla. Come on. Come on. You've still got time. You can do it. It's nearly time to spin it again. All right. Another spin. Bam. Be cooler if it was like a big switch or something. The fawn cage. Where you at? Yeah, I mean, that's the trouble, isn't it? You know, like the suspense. Oh no. That was so loud. Oh my goodness. So much suspense. I'm suspenseful. I'm in so much suspense. I'm suspended by suspense. This place is slowly filling up with smoke. It's tremendous. It's a good time. But you know, someone's got to win this thing, so you know. Spin the wheel. For those on YouTube who have like zero context, we're doing a giveaway on Instagram right now. So we're just chilling before we actually start talking some of the regular stuff for a change. So, you know, if you want to come back in like, I don't know, however long it's going to take to give away this thing. And yeah, there is a mad lag between between Restream and Instagram. It is what it is. It's just like, yeah, I don't know why. It just works really funky. All right, we're going to spin it again. Spin the black circle. What? Oh, man. Oh, mate, just joined. Reform 79, you in there, bro? Come on, man. Yay, all right. Okay, you win. You win. So all you got to do is just send me a damn DM with your address and stuff, and yeah, we'll take care of the rest. We'll send you some stuff. I'm so sorry, secretly grown. I don't know, like should get you some sort of runner up or something like that. DM us too. We'll get you some sort of runner up, bro. Because like you were standing on the verge of getting it on. It did, my bro. It did. But you know what? Like you join, I'll give you a runner up. Just jump in the DMs and we'll sort that out. All right. All right. Cool. That was fun. That was ever so much fun. If I go like this and then I go like that, then I'll stop sharing the screen. Cool. Now we're back over here again and I can go like that. All right. Okay. Here is fuzzy as today. Mm-hmm. Yeah, hell yeah. I be real, secretly grown. You were in the banana lounge, passed out. We know. Okay. Well, let's talk some like plant science stuff for a minute. Just for a little while. And then we'll all go about our merry day. How's that sound? Sound pretty cool? Sounds cool to me. Sounds cool to you? All right. So, pumping ions, building more anabolic plants. So, we spoke last time about the Krebs cycle. So, that is something that's kind of going 24/7. But it was kind of cool to talk about that one because it operates once, like, it's still operating when the lights go out. So, a lot of the time, people might sort of think, you know, the plants are only doing stuff when the lights are on, but it obviously has to sustain its metabolism 24/7. So, yes, the Krebs cycle is more what's happening at night. But what do we mean by more anabolic plants? So, yeah, metabolically jacked plants. I'm not joking around. There are anabolic and catabolic states in plants. And so when we're talking anabolism in plants, we're talking building. So that means everything from building new roots, new shoots, resin heads, pigments, flavonoids, and things like defense compounds. So all of that's built. Right. So that's all built from the energy produced in the ATP process. The Krebs cycle feeds that from an oxidative perspective. But during the lights on, you actually have another couple of arc reactors going that obviously are, working through photosynthesis. So the chloroplast sort of reactor is like your light reactions. So photosynthesis via the thylakoid cycle. So splits water, uses the hydrogen ions like we spoke about last time to spin that ATP synthase kind of reactor. And so the output of that is your ATP. And then the Calvin cycle kind of runs off that and uses energy from, uses ATP from that to fix carbon dioxide into sugar. So that sugar becomes the plant's predominant anabolic fuel. So most people are fairly familiar with that. We were all sort of taught that in school. Light, effectively makes plants produce sugar, and that powers most of their process in a very rudimentary sense. And so we spoke about the Krebs cycle last time. That's your mitochondrial arc reactor. So that's happening 24 hours a day, even when the light is off. And it burns sugars, uses amino acids, fatty acids, and outputs ATP as well. So its hydrogen ions power another reactor that produces ATP, and has CO2 as a waste product. So plants respire. Yes, they actually respire. So they're using CO2 or fixing it sort of from the air into sugars, which then inadvertently become carbon within the plant through cellulose tissues and all that sort of stuff. But then at night, they're not necessarily doing that. So that's why you know, it's ill-advised to have your CO2 enrichment operating 24 hours a day. All right. So yeah, that means that the light on period is more anabolic, but the plant has stuff going on 24 hours a day. The metabolism doesn't just shut off. But there is a catabolic aspect to that too, because in that Krebs cycle, that oxidative period, they're breaking things down that was sort of previously built or sequestered. So they're oxidizing organic compounds to keep the Krebs cycle sort of functioning. David, my bro, I'm not quite sure how to really answer that one in terms of, do you mean the pull of the moon? Or do you mean when I was trolling and I put up that moon phaser? Which is totally real, by the way. The prototypes are right on the way, I promise you. Please stop messaging me about it. All right. Let's not lose too far a track of where we are. Yeah, so the metabolism doesn't just stop when the lights go out, right? It's going 24 hours a day. It just has this other system that operates when the lights are on that enable even more fuel. And so then, building. So you're building different things. And so that means the way you feed the plant and certainly different biostimulants and different compounds can sort of produce an anabolic response in different areas of the plant. So certain fertilizers will, for instance, push growth more towards sort of more volume and less value, let's say. So they sort of have more tissue there, but the tissue is largely less rich in the valuable compounds. So the beauty of plants is that while they're still a fairly complex organism, they're orders of a magnitude less complex than humans and animals. And so you can feed certain biostimulants and certain growth factors, for instance, from other things and influence the biology of the plant fairly readily. There's quite a wide variety of things that you can use for that. Everything from amino acids, flavonoids from other plants, through things like ferments, you can get auxins, peptides, all those sort of things like that. There's a number of novel compounds that exist in certain amendments. And all of those can sort of influence the anabolic pathways in the plant. So fertilizers in general are all anabolic, but some are sort of more biologically anabolic in the right ways than others, depending on the sort of target crop you're trying to produce. So, for instance, flavonoids seem to have a bit of a response in trichome anabolism. auxins and peptides tend to have a bit of a response in root anabolism. So there's, defense mechanisms, things like silicic acid and chitosan, stuff like that. So you're not only building tissue, you're also building tissue along the same, at the same time as stimulating the pathway that generates all these secondary compounds. And then, as we spoke about last time too, so the Krebs cycle is also powering the microbes, which are doing their thing 24 hours a day. So if they're getting these biologically more appropriate food sources, some comments over on YouTube. I lost where I was at. Yeah, so you can sort of steer to build specific tissues. And so rather than just building just general tissues and just a lot of cellulose and kind of bloated cells, we'll get to that in a minute, you're kind of filling that all in with valuable stuff along the way. Someone just asked me, what do I have to smoke to get better gains in the gym? All of it. Just like Arnold. If you watch at the end of Pumping Iron, he's getting down with it. That's the secret to his multi-Olympia wins. That's why he's always having a good day. Just laughing the whole time. I mean, watch Terminator 2, but then watch it from the perspective that Arnold is just like ripped. He's just on mad edibles, and that's why he's got the black sunglasses on. Right. I remember where I was at. See, I got high before. When you get high, sometimes you lose where you're at. So yeah, if you're feeding the food web stuff that's kind of anabolic to it too, then it's sort of producing all these stimulatory compounds 24 hours a day as well. So you're sort of exploiting that Krebs cycle from both perspectives and getting more happening in the dark period. So catabolic, sort of from a gym perspective, people might see as a bad thing, but most of the sort of flavorful compounds and things like that, a lot of those are produced sort of in the oxidative period. So having a higher buildup of the stuff that kind of can be oxidized, because the plant hasn't sort of burnt through a bank of that to convert a bunch of stuff over, leaves it with more fuel in that period. So you can sort of push it one way in terms of stimulating certain pathways, and then you can kind of push it in terms of like stimulating the entire system like all the time. Right. So then you get to like bloom boosters. And so like a lot of what tends to happen with a lot of like, say, the MKP ones or like the really high EC sort of bloom boosters is like, it's kind of like the synthol of plant world, you know, like dudes that be like putting oil and stuff in themselves. Because it like just kind of inflates the cells that are there. So the high EC kind of like inflates the cells with water. And kind of, you know, bloats it all up in such a way. So it kind of gives this look where everything kind of like pushes right out and like kind of looks like it's tighter and stuff like that. But then you've also like put a whole bunch of water in there, and it's in a target crop that you're going to then take the water out of. So it's kind of like, that's where you end up with this airy, spongy, like doesn't dry quite nice, doesn't burn quite nice kind of stuff. And then when you look at it up close, it kind of looks like it was like blown up and shrunk down versus like packed in there with all the trichomes really tight. Yeah, it's like weed fake booty. Because like it's only there when the water's there, and then you're going to dry that water out. So like, and in terms of say like if you're washing or you're like running stuff down, um, I mean bulk material matters, but it kind of matters more like what's on the bulk material. Appreciate people ducking in and out. It is cool. Right. So the other thing with that is that also burns through a lot of ATP. So you've got something in there that's like metabolically kind of less than appropriate. And then you've got a high EC environment. So then it's like stressful. And you've also got stuff that's stressful on the microbes. So the whole thing is like screaming out. And that doesn't tend to create more flavor and things like that. So yes, you get this like temporary swell, but like it costs you what, like 2 weeks of your ripening stage in terms of like sequestering all those valuable compounds. And that's kind of like a lot of time to just kind of like pee up against the wall. Yeah, so the nitrates, MKP, that sort of stuff like that, it doesn't really feed the mechanisms that stimulate that whole system. And so, yes, they're anabolic in the sense that you get like a lot of tissue accumulation, but you could sort of consider it more of like a transient thing than like a high Brix flower of the same size. And as we spoke about sort of in the ATP topic as well, so because um, you're burning through more carbohydrates and sugars and things like that, and you're also diluting them by inflating that with water, that also leads to a lower Brix, so lower flavor, all that kind of stuff. Right. So yeah, you will get better, sort of a better kind of profile of anabolic growth from more natural compounds. So bioactive inputs, things that the plant can either recognize as like immediately, yep, I'll take that, or stuff that's a couple of steps away from that. So certain peptides can just get straight in there. Um, certain amino acids can get straight in there. Other ones kind of have to be broken down a bit and cleaved down. See, I mean, we've got someone on YouTube, right? And it's hilarious to me because, like, you say like the lazy bones plant, and yet here I am on a Sunday on like a public holiday, long weekend, like talking about science stuff that I researched all week. Um, it's not really a lazy thing to do, dude. I could be laid in the sun on the beach. So, it's all cool, but like, just please understand that like that's just completely silly. So yeah, you've got your unique peptides, you've got organic acids, amino acids. So your peptides, amino acids work on your growth signals generally. Organic acids, so even things like citric acid, can kind of feed the Krebs cycle. And amino acid blends too tend to feed structure and enzyme production. So they're both a signaling molecule as well as a building block. And so, yeah, a lot of people use different fermented plant extracts as well, because even breaking down stuff directly from um, plants into something like a ferment is sort of bioidentical enough to sort of elicit a response in plants. And then, of course, you've got things like your fulvic acids and different sorts of minerals as well that sort of support. So, magnesium, for instance, is a cofactor. So, supports enzyme production in the plant. And then, if you stack some of those things together, that's where you can get some sort of really potent responses. So, then getting back to kind of what we were talking about before with the connection between that soil food web, which is kind of operating 24 hours a day, Krebs cycle that's operating 24 hours a day, there's a potential there to stimulate the underlying system to get 24-hour a day anabolic response. So rather than sort of feeding it a bunch of stuff during the light period that, yes, is going to produce a bunch of growth, but then once the lights go out in that oxidative period, it's kind of breaking down a more limited supply of stuff that it didn't get a chance to sort of build up. You can sort of have more stuff there that can sort of be used to feed that whole system. So carbon skeletons, amino acids, hormonal precursors, and your cofactors like we were talking about. So magnesium, iron, manganese. So yeah, during the day, feeding the plant with stuff that the mitochondria can burn more cleanly at night. So yeah, that's effectively some of the ways you can kind of biohack some kind of things. Um, some of the metabolic processes that are going on in the plant. So not just sort of looking at, okay, feed it X amount of NPK within a period to get sort of X amount of growth. You can sort of attack it that way. But if you look at sort of every time you feed the plant, there's an opportunity there to also stimulate other systems. Then you can kind of just go a bit further with that. So I let a few people ask some questions. There were a few. There was one dude's got, why is PGR bad? I mean, that's a whole rabbit hole. Mostly they're bad because they're so a lot of the classic PGRs are effectively failed herbicides, and so they were trialed as herbicides and they failed the test. They just kind of produced mutated growth, but mutated in a way that was useful for farming certain crops. So they use it on mangoes. They use it in a surprising amount of food production, really. But it's always outside where the half life of it is a lot. I mean, with something like pactobutrazol, is like a lot cycled a lot faster. Lost the wording for it. And there's a long period. So I think I read one time it was 9 months or something in between applications. But yeah, it works. I mean, ones like that tend to work by inhibiting the gibberellin pathway. So that's by the way, like a lot of stretch and all that sort of stuff comes that way. But there's also a lot of flavor responses and other sort of stuff produced that way too. So that's why you end up with that stuff that has no flavor to it, no frost, because it's kind of inhibiting the actual pathway that produces all of that stuff. So the why people use it is it makes kind of subpar environments and poor growing practices a lot easier because it kind of does stuff metabolically to the plant in such a way that changes it. So it makes them more drought resistant, um, things of that nature. But yeah, and they're carcinogenic, so or at least mutagenic. So that's the other thing about them too. They're not intended to be used on short-term crops, particularly that are produced in an indoor environment where the UV exposure is far lower. That's you know, and that's just one of them. There's multiples. There's chlormequat. There's alar. There's several different ones that are used sometimes in combination. But yeah, it's not good, and it's not a good way to produce good quality stuff. It's just yeah, it's just kind of a way that's kind of been something that people do. It's not a good thing to do. I think people think that they're like plant steroids or something like that, and it's really not because it doesn't really like produce an anabolic response in the entirety of the plant. If anything, it produces like an inhibitory response. So the plant kind of grows to spite of it rather than because of it. But put it this way, like when I used to work in nurseries, right? We used to do these ornamental chilies and chrysanthemums, and we used to spray them with Pacto. And like to do that, we used to wear like, you know, a proper chem suit, respirator, full on gloves, all that sort of stuff like that to like do that. Um, and then they all had to be labeled, especially the chilies, as like ornamental because you're not supposed to eat them. Someone asking if it passes anything on to the seeds, it can because it may be something that they grow out of, but it's also something that kind of like it's a mutagen, so it causes DNA damage. So that's not the best thing for like strain integrity. Let's put it that way. Yeah, it's been around a long time, and a lot of people still use it, unfortunately. But yeah, instead of thinking of it like, you know, some sort of plant super drug or something like that, um, you know, it's really not. Like think about like, you know, imagine if you took a supplement before you went to the gym and it like made you train crappier and like inhibited you from like getting anywhere there. Like you'd be like, this is a terrible supplement. Oh my God, I have to stop taking this. This is poison. Like, you know. But yeah, and not good for people either. Just yeah, people combusting it too, like, you know, terrible. There was someone asked before something about what was it? There was a couple. What's the story with the full moon? Yeah, so does the moon have like any massive difference on plants? Like anecdotally, yeah, but as anything measurable, not really. They've tried, but you know, the consensus is like it works if you believe in it. I like to think it does. You know, giant moon up there, just kind of like sending down lunar rays. But you know, there's no guarantee that it does. There's certainly nothing that's been like, you know, and how would you isolate for that too? Like, what are you going to do? I suppose you'd have to send it into outer space or something like that. I don't know. That's one of those conundrum questions. I'm not sure I'm like qualified to answer that one. That's probably a more like Neil deGrasse Tyson or something like that. And another one on the moon is, are the phases of the moon not more related to germination success? So does like planting in line with the moon do anything with germination rates? Again, like people say it does. Anecdotally, yeah, people say it does. But again, it's not something that's like scientifically measurable, really. So, if you've got something extra precious and you kind of like want to save it for a full moon, go for it. Maybe it'll give them like the extra juice. I mean, hey, if it influences the tides, it's got to have some sort of influence on things potentially, right? But yeah, no guarantee there. Interesting though. Alex Baker. Sometimes they use some different stuff in grapes. I'm not quite sure what they do though, to be honest with you. I'm not really much into viticulture. I do know people that are into it, but yeah, I think they use a couple of different PGRs and even potentially gibberellins. But if you're into viticulture, like get at me. You would know more about it than me. Yeah, so like someone asking there, is there stuff that's like acts like plant steroids? Yeah, kinda. Um, so you can think of kind of like even compounds that you get from kelp, um, amino acids, uh, peptides, all those sort of things that we're kind of discussing that stimulated um, the systems we've kind of talked about the last couple of weeks. Those aren't in like a traditional sense, but in terms of like what you're thinking of is a compound that enables something to accrue more mass within a given period of time. That could be mass comprised of a variety of different things. It could be root mass or um, resin mass, whatever like that. And yeah, there's innumerable organic compounds that do that. That's what makes it very interesting, because there's only a certain amount of salt-based fertilizers you can use, and they're only going to work on a certain amount of pathways. Whereas there's an enormous amount of different plants. So that's different plants you can extract things from, both land and sea. So that's sort of what you would more think of as anabolic. But I mean, here's the thing though, right? Food is anabolic. So like even just your amendments and things like that are stimulating that whole, like when you see like a huge microbe growth after you've just put down top dressings, that's that's evidence of some anabolic conditions right there. And yeah, so those things wouldn't necessarily have mutagenic responses, right? They're going to be kind of a net win for the plant. All right. Sweet. Someone asking, are there any benefits to shared root zones? So in terms of like, companion cropping with things, yeah, again, there's like definitely evidence that works. So, yeah, that's something you can do. The thing that is kind of a trickier thing is when someone has like a lot of root competition going on in pots. So they might have like a lot of cover cropping going on where it arguably gets to a point where there's like competition for resources, because you can only sort of support a certain amount of biology out of a certain given area optimally. And sometimes there's a bit of a like misnomer with people not understanding how some of those cover crops might give back, like when the plant gets the nutrients. So with something like clover, for instance, you're probably not going to be seeing a lot of that nitrogen until you like kill the clover and dig it in. So while it's growing there alongside your plant, you're not necessarily getting the rhizobium ammonias kind of like happening inside the clover root. It's not necessarily sharing that outward. It kind of uses that to build its foliage, and then you use that to build your soil. But in terms of like, getting rid of nematodes, yes, like there's stuff for that. In terms of like repelling plants, repelling mites and things like that, that seems to have some sort of effect. It's not always quantifiable, but yeah, it is something that does seem to have some sort of effect. But like if you're running huge pots or beds, like it's really not necessarily an issue. But just kind of in a common sense perspective, if you've got, an enormous amount of stuff happening that isn't necessarily the target crop, then it might be less than ideal. What have we got there? Someone's saying the moon is reflective light. Does that affect anything indoors? Well, I mean, if it's indoors, the light can't get to it. So I'd say no. And as for if it prolongs flowering or anything like that, maybe. But again, kind of depends. It certainly doesn't make autos go any faster. It's kind of an interesting one. If there's a set amount of pathways for uptake, well, there's kind of multiple pathways for uptake, and then there's also like what's happening once things are uptaken. So, in general, yeah, I mean, that's kind of like more gets down to formulating. In terms of value, I think, trying to pack as many biostimulants and things like that into a single product is preferable. Because oftentimes in soil you're watering less often than you are in other sorts of medium, so less chances to drench those things or apply things. Generally, they're done more sparingly. But also because there tends to be synergy between a bunch of different ingredients, using combinations of those at the same time can just kind of build and build and build. But in terms of a value triage, that's like an interesting term. I mean, yeah, I mean, my approach tends to be kind of like, make it as specky as I possibly can. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go that far with it. But I guess kind of looking at the different pathways that you're wanting to actually promote and then kind of going, all right, well, what's the thing supposed to do? And what's going to produce that, say, from a mineral perspective, but then also facilitate that. So say if you want to make something uptake more calcium, what's going to kind of stimulate the calcium ion response? And then what's going to enable the plant to use that perhaps more efficiently to build material. So even if you look at sort of structuring just very basic combinations of dry amendments, that's where you sort of get to building more complete fertilizers, because you're trying to look at things more like a balanced meal, I guess, rather than sort of chasing individual trace elements and things like that all the time. And then, R&D as well. You've got to like test things to see how they work, see what sort of responses you get from stuff. Cool. All right. Well, we ran long today. Not sure if this one will live on the YouTube or not. But we appreciate people joining in. I think I'm going to call it there for the day. Thank you so much. We love you all. And we'll catch you next time. Bye. Bye.